contributing some, which in fact is going to go back into a trust fund for the scholarship. So in fact, they should have a right to determine what goes on that property, because they are putting up at least 75% of the funding.
How much is the town putting up?
This will probably cost us right in the ballpark of $30,000 when we're done. Out of our
Fishing game?
Fishing game, 45,
And
L-chip, 50.
L-chip's 25, isn't it?
No, 50.
Oh, really? 50?
We asked for 50, they gave us 50.
Oh, okay, good, even better.
So that adds up to 135.
Yeah, they're paying the lion's share.
It's almost as if we're gonna have title to this property, but in 10 years, after the scholarship money has come back to students, it's gonna really look like we bought a bunch of scholarships and got the land for free in 10 years.
Not to mention you're conserving the water along the Branch River down there and in the Union Meadows. And I think there's something to be said for that alone. And that ecosystem down there, if the Pulse can ever get together and get field trips to go down there for science projects and other organizations, there's an ecosystem that is just fantastic with the diversity of it.
Part of it is, when we conserve land, there's always two outlooks. One is if you do nothing with it, you're preserving it with a future generation so they have an option of doing something with it. The other side of the coin is if you preserve this land and you get going, you can use it immediately. You know, if you make a parking area and put the signs and all that. I like the idea that if we're going to invest even our conservation money, that the citizens can use it immediately. Because what you'll never see is posted signs on it. Someday there could be a snowmobile trail through there. And I know, Charlie, you appreciate snowmobile trails. And you're driving through, you know, you're driving through federal lands with a snowmobile and you appreciate it now, but, you know, 100 years from now, that land that you drive through will still be there and they'll still be using it, and this is going to be the same.
he doesn't ride in town, so it's not.
Oh, he's probably up in the White Mountains or somewhere.
Yeah, I thought the township was a little bit more, and I had some behind thoughts that, geez, we could have done some fundraisers and get it up, but that's 135,000 versus
Well,
30.
Well, the big difference was, I heard about that L-chip grant like 2 weeks before it closed, an hour and 20 minutes before the deadline on a Monday morning. I just bent down to Staples and walked in with a big application. Now, I don't want to take all the credit for getting that grant, because my theory was that I may not have filled out those blanks in the best possible way with the best possible words. The fact is that the land speaks for itself. And I might have put any old language I wanted on that grant and might have succeeded anyway. So the L-chip grant really pushed us over the edge to make it like such a sweet deal for the town. When I made the deal last December, I went down to Daytona and talked to the trustee, the owner, and I made the deal with her across her living room table. I wanted to jump up and down when I walked out of there, because we had the grants committed, and I knew that this was going to be a very good deal for the town. I could hardly not tell people, but we kept it confidential until the sale, the purchase and sale agreement was signed. So right now, the task is a surveyor. I promised them that we would have the contract awarded by April 1. I gave you guys some days after this meeting. If you need to find out more facts, we can go to work tomorrow and we can still meet that deadline. If you're prepared tonight to engage this surveyor, I'd like to send them to work next Monday.
Public comments, Ralph.
Just two things. There was another issue raised during the public hearings, and that was the ties to the Agenda 21 of the United Nations, which has been adopted by regional planning people in the state, Northeast, and the federals. The monies, it is tax dollars. Your paycheck helps donate through the way of the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization, which as employees, you have no say of where your money's going. It does go to the International Monetary Fund. So those monies are dispersed along to all the different nations and stuff that are involved in the whole planning scheme. So just, when you say they're grants, they're government money and stuff like that, it is your tax dollars.
Some of the fish and game money could be raised by the way, so it may not be, well, from licenses and registrations and stuff.
Actually, that question came up last Monday night again, and it has before, and the precise source of the money that Fish and Game is using comes from the federal government. It comes off the guns and ammunition tax. And I asked him, does it come off fishing reel tax? And he said, no, that's a different fund. The source of this money is exactly from the tax on sporting goods, specifically guns and ammunition. It has no international source. When we buy our ammunition, we're contributing to this.
And the L-chip funding, I believe, is from the registry, and they charge an extra, I think, $25 every time you record a plan up there. That money goes into an L-chip fund.
And we took a ton of L-chip money working here in the town hall and other places, so. And I see Moose Mountain Greenway does too. Steve?
One of the biggest things that I have in this conservation easement is, why do they repeatedly, time and time again, refer to their successors and their successor entities? Who are these successors? And for Dave to say that this has nothing to do with the international community, when I asked Monday night from Fish and Game who their successors were, at first he didn't know. And then he went on to say that, well, if Fish and Game no longer existed, it would go to some state department. If it didn't go to a state department, it would go to the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, which is specifically defined in Agenda 21 from the United Nations. So someday China or the United Nations or something may own this conservation easement on our land in our town. And I don't know, apparently I'm the only, I'll say apparently I'm the only one who has a problem with their successes having control of our land in our town. And I don't understand this. Why everyone is just ignoring this is beyond me. Because this is concerning, really concerning.
Steve, I think we owe China enough money at this point. I think the Union Meadows would be the last thing they'd want to take from us. It might be Mount Rushmore or the Yosemite or someplace like that myself. I'm joking around with you, but what I'm saying, Steve, is they're not going to be coming here and taking the Union Meadows.
I'm not saying that, Peter, but why do they repeatedly have to put in the easement their successors?
It's legal documentation, Steve, because
Attorney General drafted it.
this easement has to travel in perpetuity. There always has to be somebody there because it's going on forever.
But he said Monday night, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and that's specifically what the agenda, the United Nations tells us to do, to put in, because that's who the United Nations is telling the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do all this. I just have a concern. If you people want to trust the federal government,
I could maybe explain more precisely.
Eloquently than I did.
We put that question to Rich Cook from New Hampshire Fish and Game, and he said the reason that the successor language is in there is because they're constantly shuffling departments, so that one state department might be brought under another. And he said that Fish and Game is having revenue problems. They don't buy as many hunting licenses as they used to, and they could be put under the Department of Natural Resources. So when you're looking 50 or 100 years or even 200 years in the future, that language was put in by a lawyer for the idea that someday there might not be a Fish and Game department. It might be called the Natural Resources Department. The fishing and hunting was out of style or something. So it's possible that there could be reshuffling. And then the question was put, what if there was no State Department? And then he said, well, it would fall under the federal Fish and Wildlife, I guess is the title they use. So that's why the word successors comes in there.
One more public comment. He's got the bigger camera.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, the white binder that I issued to you, it's in your office here,
Yeah.
it has a 10-year report. It specifically says in that document, in the 10-year report, that's issued to the United Nations from the federal government, it specifically annotates how Fish and Game is utilizing the tax credit system to gather up land, create the wildlife corridors, and work on the Convention of Biological Diversity Treaty. So that's a fact. Just so you know that it is a fact, you can go look at it. The second question I had is, Dave, did Rich Cook of Fish and Game answer any of those questions that I had to you? The concerns about the easement
I think
specifically?
Steve presented, Ed provided us a copy of the conservation easement, and he took paragraphs that he was concerned with and put them in red. And actually during the meeting, two of us were using your copies of that with the red outline. And I think Steve asked all the questions you would have if you were there.
Do you feel that he answered them?
I feel so, yes.
Did all the selectmen read through the easement?
The easement itself?
Yes. Well, if you read my redlined one and really go home and think about exactly what the verbiage is, you will have a problem, at least, with the verbiage of that easement. If you take the Agenda 21 thing out of the way, if you just read the easement, you would not buy from a used car dealer a car without an engine in it, because you know better. But if you read the easement and read where I redlined it, you can see that you have a problem with it. And I think you should address that. Because you're not going to be able to change the Agenda 21 thing. It's not happening. You're going to have no choice to do that. But you can at least, force the easement to be written in a manner where it's more clear and that you understand it before you buy it.
I haven't seen the red line version.
Actually, I didn't bring that tonight. I've got more survey documents here, but I do have a version of it. Let's see here.
I'll make a motion to sign the survey. 1, 2, 3. Dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion? Looks like it's tabled.
But how does that work? I mean, I'm just not quite clear of the whole situation. So for me to make a decision at this minute, I mean, can we make it?
I know, Charlie, you're new on this. If we don't get a survey, we don't meet the due diligence requirements for both grants. If we don't get both grants, we have made an offer for $150,000, which the selectmen agreed to. And we have a purchase and sale in the hands of the seller. If we don't have that money, the Conservation Committee only voted to move forward with this because we had the grant money. We would not have the money to complete the purchase. We could exhaust all of our conservation funds and not meet maybe half of the price that we've committed to buy this land.
We're putting 30 in and they're putting 135.
Right, so even if we exhausted money that we wanted to hold for future projects in the future, we could not complete the deal. So we would
But you
default.
said that we had a couple of days.
Yeah, but we would have to repost a meeting, get back together by Friday and have another meeting scheduled wise. It's not going to happen.
2 weeks out.
Yeah, and that passes April date.
Charlie,
To me, if you think the Chinese are coming, then
No, that's not what I think.
everybody in
I'm
town would be
just-
in their rifles and would be
I
dug in
just
so
think that
deep.
we're not in the market for
I
buying
didn't
land.
say that.
But
No,
I'm
but
not
you-
positive on how the whole thing works. So I'm making the decision on just,
Charlie, just to let you know,
Tonight.
I have to abstain because I've got,
That was
dealings
good.
with different part of the Conservation Commission, with the owner of the property and as a selectman and stuff. So this vote is between you two.
and it all sounds good, but, I'm not quite sure of the whole thing at all. This is the first I've heard of it. So how do I make that decision? Without,
No, we gotta,
It's a problem when boards change and people get elected. And
yeah.
this has been going on for,
Well,
we knew about it a year
the
ago.
general consensus that I have is not many people want to buy this land.
I would-
So that's what I'm listening to. I'm not saying that that's what I'm feeling. I'm just saying that the more I hear about it, the more people don't want it, or at least don't want to purchase it, because they feel that it's not really the town's land at that point.
And it shouldn't be, the town's not paying the money for it.
So where does the
Fishing game does.
30,000 come from?
Whenever you have a piece of parcel that's in current use,
Correct.
Such as
It-
yours
I know,
was
I
before you
understand that money.
so that money is, when you take it out of current use as a penalty, that
Correct.
money goes to the Conservation
Which
Commission
I
and
paid
keep it in the
myself
coffers.
and taken my,
Yep.
okay,
So
but
that
does
money
that
goes-
money ever go back to the general public?
No, no.
So
Unless somebody made a new warrant article and redid that whole structure.
Well, there was a warrant article by this town, and these voters in this town voted for our current use money to go into this fund. In other towns, they may have not done that, but in this town, that's where the current use money goes.
Most towns, they don't, it goes to the offset.
So,
Okay, so let's just say that you put, that we went ahead with the survey. Does that mean that we're going ahead with the whole thing?
the decision will be made at the closing, because you will have papers to sign, and that's not gonna be until probably late July or the middle of August. So you have more time to consider this, because really the question tonight, we're making increment steps. The increment tonight is to do the survey.
Because
11.5.
the easement thing sounded pretty real to me, that, you know, by reading the red line of the easement. If I still had time to do that, you're spending,
You have time. Your time, I mean, I hate to, I don't want to seem like I'm pushing to try to put something over on the board. When I did this, I wanted to give the seller is an elderly lady. When I talked to her, it was before Christmas. I didn't want to tell her it was going to be, she was going to see another Christmas before she sold this land. So I set a date of August that we would close, and the different steps that we have to go through are just filling in all those months. So I did create a bid package that said that the bid would be awarded by April 1. I allowed you to have this meeting tonight and then a couple days this week.
okay.
You could say, like, make a motion, let's see, we had a question about alignment. Okay, it would be possible tonight to approve this bid package, deleting that line. And in 2 days, I could get another copy of this with that line deleted, have it here by Friday, and you could still sign it. We would still be within the constraints of the bid package.
And is that what you feel?
But, yeah, I mean, if that was the issue.
As I said, I'm not gonna,
Well, you brought up,
I'm talking about the line in there, yes, there was a line in there, Charlie, right here, this.
Yeah, I read it.
But I saw that it said for work beyond the scope, beyond the above scope.
Yeah.
So that's when you ask them to start doing stuff, so.
If you said, what if you could do this?
Yeah.
Right, if you're adding things on, but also it just concerned me that the whole bid package, and the only, like I said, was based upon the requirements of Fish and Game and L-CHIP, and we discussed it at a Conservation Commission meeting, and it was up to the surveyors themselves to research what was necessary to fulfill those obligations. And so I'm only saying, why is that line necessary? If they researched everything they had to do, then they should have bid on that. Instead of bidding low and then saying, well,
I'll piecemeal it in,
yeah. And I'm not saying that that's what's being done, I'm simply
Yeah.
saying that that line appears to offer that opportunity.
But I did allow the board in my bid package, I knew it would be coming to this meeting, I knew we would have reviewed it at Conservation and talked to Rich Cook, and he reviewed it, and he thought it was fine. So I did allow 2 days, so that if there was something like one line you wanted changed, I could get on the phone, change that line, get a copy back, and I even talked to Teresa, I said, if you don't sign it tonight, you could come in individually if you vote tonight. Let's say you don't like one line, for example. I'm not saying there is a line you don't like, but if you don't like one line, you could vote to agree to accept the bid less that line, and I could get it all changed, bring it back, and you could sign it individually on Thursday or Friday. Because I didn't want to give you a take it or leave it proposition entirely.
Do you know what the percentage of conservation land is in town? Have you ever calculated it?
Actually, we're in the process, we're trying to inventory that land. There are large parcels of hundreds of acres, and easements are held by many different entities. We took in a parcel on Wistrott Road, and the easement there is held by the Department of Agriculture, again, another federal entity.
And you're in the process of mapping those or finding those?
Yeah, it's a huge project.
Yeah.
It's akin, well, it's gonna be part of the master plan, but it's almost akin to the master plan needing a mic to get it done. I've been very busy with this. Some days, all I do all day is work on this project.
Because once you identify them, we can just give it to our mappers, and it's just a polygon, they shade another color, and we'll have it all right there.
The hardest part, Ken, is sometimes, like the one on Wichita Road, was done without the Conservation Commission's knowledge. That was a
And
private
I think I'd be
easement.
only more concerned about the town stuff.
Yeah,
And
Well, that one is conservation, but the thing is, you have to search every deed, because if they excluded the property that the house and barn is on and put the rest in, you can't color in the whole property and be accurate.
yeah.
You have to then read the deeds, and we weren't privy to that. I read it about it in the newspaper. Often these properties come into conservation, and the owners want not to be identified, they want to do it anonymously. And honestly, even in this project, when we were bringing this in to be a conservation property, there was no way that we wanted to advertise the price, because if somebody wanted to harvest the gravel out of it, he could have rushed in and made a counter offer, and that would degrade the water quality, and it would be posted, and it would not be there for future generations, and all kinds of things counter to our purposes would happen.
Ken, if you bring up your Wakefield tax maps, there is a tab here, Conservation Land Map,
Yeah.
and it's shaded, the conservation lands are shaded. See these light green? And you can probably get them to different colors here if you change the type of base map that you have. Bless you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Now you say that, I did see that too. We don't have that tab at work.
Yeah,
So that's one thing I gotta add to ours.
trying to see if I can lighten this.
The conservation land stretch from Moose Mountains all over, you know, we have Gage Hill, and they have different entities. The Gage Hill property is, the conservation easement holder is the New Hampshire Society of Protection of Forests.
And that's been around since they clear cut up in the White Mountains.
Yeah.
That's been around. I thought that was fairly new. I've just heard of that over the past 15 years or so, but that's been around forever. Are you interested in having the survey work done?
Well, if that's as far as we go, and to give me time to even understand it, because I have no
We're
idea.
not making a decision to buy the property, we're making a decision here to commit conservation funds to the tune of
And we as
$11,000.
a taxpayer, or the taxpayers are not paying for that at all anyway.
No, it's
Landowners have paid for it, really.
it's not out of our
I mean,
budget.
you can look at it the other way, is that money could have gone to offset the revenue if somebody had a warrant article and changed how the process is now. But
Ken, this gives you an idea of how little conservation lands we have as a community compared to some others. This is
I know,
us,
I'm
this is
just not a
Middleton,
big-
Brookfield, Wolfbone stuff over here. You can see the light shaded stuff. This is Wakefield and this boundaries right here, so
I guess
these are the tracks.
in the most basic terms, I would say, if you've ever ridden your snowmobile and come up to a posted sign that said, posted, and you couldn't go there. That's what we're trying to avoid, is to have enough public land so people can use
And
it.
that's the fine line, is what percent is enough public land for recreational? 5%, 6%? I think you start getting a little crazy if you get much more than that, but.
Well, this river frontage is more, you know, when you go up to Gage Hill, that's a nice hillside, it's nice woods. But the river frontage is one of the reasons that Fish and Game is so interested in this. The wildlife that exists down in that marsh.
Okay, so if the Fish and Game forest, then what is it that we have, why do they need money from us?
They're not getting much money from us. They,
I know, but I mean, if it's 10 cents or 50,000, I'm just saying,
We
what
asked
is
them
it?
for the, we
We
asked
asked
them for
them?
the money. We asked them and they said they would give us $80,000 towards it.
They want the town to see it.
Yeah.
yeah, they're coming in.
So we take the responsibility of it, keeping it clean and monitoring it, and
We have the use of it. because they could take that 85,000 and they could go preserve land in another town, and then those people would have the use of that town for, that land forever. And this could become posted in private. So in a way, they're doing us a favor to preserve land in our town.
But to answer Charlie's question, yes, we do have a responsibility of making sure that the easement is being upkept. That's,
And
if,
without reading that easement, such as what Ed said, is there
if
is there
it
an
says that
issue
you're not
with
allowed
that
to have a
easement?
building on there, you know, construct any building sites, and Fish and Game or somebody were to come onto that site and see that we popped up a new shed somewhere on that property, or somebody did, we would be responsible for removing it. You know, that's the responsibility, that's why they're giving us money to help buy the land, and LCHIP is. And in turn, they expect certain things.
Yeah, which is always the way it is, right?
Yeah.
They're not giving us nothing, they want something from it.
Exactly. And, you know, Fish and Game is concerned that the hunting land and fishing land is becoming scarce, and
If we're only committing $11,500 of the Conservation Committee Fund money tonight, we're making a little increment in a timely manner to keep it moving. And this is the conservation, it's not quite in order because I was shuffling through it the other night. That's a copy of that. You have plenty of time to study that issue before we come to a closing. The closing is probably going to be in August.
And you feel comfortable with that also? Well, I'm comfortable with that, as long as you're telling me that it's not costing the taxpayers money to do this. And if you're doing this on your own, and then we'll make the decision later to spend the taxpayers' money.
We'll give you more time because I realize, you know, we've been going on this for a year.
Yeah, I'm making a decision, I don't have a clue what it is.
Charlie, don't be mistaken though. Anything the government does costs the taxpayers money, one way or the other, whether the money's there from before or not. But that money is there, and it's penalty money that the Conservation Commission has. Well, it's a tax derivative. It's in their fund. But it's not going to increase the taxes, the tax burden.
The sense of it is that if somebody takes money out of current use, that then some land somewhere will have a conservation easement put on it to balance it. So it's development balancing conservation. The more you develop and take current use land, the more money goes over for these type of conservation projects. So it's just trying to achieve a balance.
Is there a motion there somewhere, so?
You're the one that made it.
No, mine died for lack of a second.
Did you make another one?
Nope.
And I'm supposed to?
You can make a motion.
Oh, I know I could.
Yeah.
And then I,
Move ahead for 11.5 for a survey.
How much did you pay for this seat? A lot of time and sweat involved in that.
I guess I have to go and watch the meetings anymore, though.
no, and I'm not happy with it, because I don't like buying land that we don't need, personally. I'm not quite sure if I'm making the right decision, so,
To me, this land's much more attractive than the land that was bought downstream. That cost 5 times as much more to the town, and it's less useless
It's
compared to,
we
this
have
is more attractive, I think.
We have easier access here because you can go to Marsh Road, and in fact, I was talking to my friend Steve Mikowski, and we made a point to, we're gonna put in a canoe and run down that river from the Marsh Road Bridge, you know, some one day soon. And that's what I envision, is that it could be used for canoeing.
That's what I'm assuming.
Every time we went there were fly fishermen there in the spring. The state stocks that stream. And
Several places.
if it's not posted, you can go down that stream bank and fish.
so make the motion.
One died.
You can try it again.
I've got to be a Bangor at 12 hours. I'm good. I'll make the motion to move forward with the survey from Eric C. Mitchell, 11/5.
And I'll second it upon that I still can make a decision after knowing